Welcome to my channel.
I saw everything on the video, she didn't even hide. Story 1-2. I saw everything on the video, she didn't even hide. I'd suspected it for months at the time. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I think she was cheating for years. We had argued, she went to her friends. Her friend was an evil tramp, out for herself and duck everyone else, but she didn't see that. They went out to this somewhat trendy bar in our local town. I was working, but at one point it heard she was there from one of my runners. Now, I'm not the controlling type, I'm the complete opposite. The way I seen it, we fought. I was pissed, she was pissed, and after almost a decade together from we were kids, I figured thing would settle down and it'd bring her breakfast in bed whilst apologizing for our argument. She didn't come home. I got worried, I rang her phone. Her friend answered, and considering it was something like 5 a.m. and it sounded like they were at a party, I basically hung up and went back to bed. Woke up later that morning, on my own. Went downstairs, sat in the kitchen watching my dog in the back garden. Looking back, I think I knew fine damn rightly what she had done then. But, I was a busy man, especially on the weekends. I got washed, dressed, but felt sick to my stomach. I got on with it. I got back home around 5:30 p.m. that Saturday evening. She wasn't there and nobody had been there. I really couldn't figure this out. I sent her a text asking what she would like for dinner that night, waited a few hours, and after no reply, I went and got myself food. That night I just couldn't focus. I tried to work, but I was too snappy and starting to have major suspicions. I went for a drink. I went to the bar she was in, and funnily enough, the owner was there. Very popular, trendy, fit guy. Come across as a sissy, not in a bad way, but I believe a man should be rugged and have hard jobs. He approached me and said something jokingly like, "Oh, we don't want any fighting tonight, big guy," but I really wasn't that much of a fighter. But he annoyed me saying it. I told him to sit down. He said he was working, and I responded that I wasn't asking. He immediately sat down. I stared into my drink. Leaning on the bar, I asked him, "You know my woman, Muggsy, don't you?" He avoided the question, and I told him to cut the ducking shit. He sat there like a little boy and asked if I wanted to see the CCTV. I know police have to be present or something at the time, but realistically, if anyone suggested them coming, it'd have literally lost the head. I seen her on CCTV, she was in a black dress. I could tell she was drunk, and it was obvious she was on something, only going by the videotape. I seen her talking to a guy, her body language said it all. I asked him to turn it off. He said he would skip some and point her out. I left that bar, basically a broken man. Physically I'm no pushover, a very masculine man. But my eyes were filling with tears as I walked out. I knew she had kissed 3 guys and left the bar with one. I went home. I sat in the dark. Rolled a joint, then another. Then I hadn't the patience to roll another. I jumped up and flung the table across the room, walked to the kitchen and lifted a bottle of Jameson whiskey down from above the fridge, poured what must have been close to 250 milliliters and downed it. I kept doing this. I called her phone, but no answer. I texted her, saying please say it isn't true, but there was no reply. I went to see a partner of mine at the time. I was very drunk at that point, so when I reached him he took me home and attempted to talk me down. That it was probably nothing. Despite being a drug dealer and trafficking kgs of cocaine, speed, MDMA, marijuana, etc. I was never into drugs. But I did take what could only be described as a duck ton of cocaine, whiskey and marijuana that night, crying and wrecking my house. Threw in a few perkies just for good measure. I woke up the Sunday morning, feeling like absolute dung. I decided enough was enough. I had to ask her. I got to know. I went to her mom's house. As I pulled in, I could see her ass la brother run past the kitchen window. He was the type would shout about beating you up, then run away and avoid you for a few weeks in case you hurt him, and I was in no mood for games. I walked right in. I came through the hall and into the kitchen, and her mom turned around and said, "Well, Po." I cut her off by asking where my girlfriend was. She paused and said, "Upstairs." I walked into her bedroom. She was sitting on the edge of her bed crying. Pictures of us were ducking everywhere. Her wardrobe was flipped over to where we had wrote our names on her wall while painting when we were in our teens. She looked over at me and just said, "I am sorry." I thought I could feel my heart drop out my ass. I'd seen it, but tried to ignore the truth. I asked how many. She said it didn't matter. All that mattered was she was sorry and we could get through it. I asked again. She reached over, touched my job, looked at me and said 5. She had kissed 3 men in the bar that night and went home with 2 guys. I was in complete show. I asked why, how, what had I done? She said Sarah had told her to. She took it as a breakup, so she thought it would help. I walked out of her bedroom down the stairs, and as I walked into the kitchen I could hear her shouting, "Wait." Running behind me, she grabbed the back of my jacket and I think she was attempting to say sorry. I looked right at her. I said, "Sarah thinks this, Sarah thinks that." I pulled a small box out of my pocket. It was an engagement ring she had said she liked in Paris when we were on holiday there several years before. I set it on the table. I looked at her and said, "You thought we were over because we argued, but you'd been acting really strange with me." She said, "There's 2 flights booked to Venice in December for a week, back home for 2 days and then 2 flights to Fiji. I was going to ask you to marry me New Year's night in Italy." I walked out and that was basically it. I grew up with each other. I'd been with her from I was 13 years old. We got our first house at 18. She was my best friend. This was all over a decade ago. I've never had a girlfriend since. I just never really fully got over her, to be honest. We still talk every now and again, but it's more walking on eggshells because we would argue so easily. I do try to avoid her. Seeing her with other guys after we ended put me in a really bad place. She put me through heck, and I think a lot of it was out of pure spite. Anyway, there you go. Childhood sweethearts that broke up, continue to argue and blame each other and never seem to settle with anyone else over a decade later. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, "You really need to allow yourself to move on, mate. You are shortchanging your own life for a woman who is incompatible with you. I know it's hard, but you are clinging to someone who is toxic to you." Redditor 2, "Hi Diana. Yeah, I know. I've tried numerous times over the years, but every time I meet someone they just don't compare or I can't trust them. Either way it's not fair on the other person. I know I'm slightly damaged from it, but after it I focused on work and stopped looking for years. When I posted this, I had met someone, but now I can see it's starting to go somewhere. We seem to get along like a house on fire. Friends have joked that she seems like the female version of myself. But we both want to take it slow. We've an upcoming court date. My ex assaulted her whilst we were out for food and drinks in a local bar restaurant on a date, but considering we've dated since it seems to be alright. Another date tomorrow night. Redditor 3, "Best thing for you to do is succeed in love, in career, indeed in life. Oh, and make sure you don't hide your success from her." Redditor 4, "Thank you. To be honest though, I've never really made any attempt to look for love. I have dated, met people, etc., but when things would get serious I just can't jobble it. I guess I'm either not fully over it or avoid relationship completely. But that's my own choice. In terms of life or success, I own a string of very successful businesses. But I wouldn't be one to value success. I'm a simple man. I enjoy the smaller things in life. Family, friends, etc. She can still read me like a book though and knows exactly how to push my plug-ons. Hardly surprising though." Redditor 5, "Man. What a horrible story. I'm truly sorry for your loss. I went through a similar situation with my ex-wife and it broke me for years. I hope someday you can find peace. This is heart-wrenching." Redditor 6, "I'm sorry you had that terrible experience. You sound like a good person. You don't have to spend your life alone. You could find someone who is more mature and wants to get married and maybe raise a family. There is a world of difference in the maturity of 18-year-olds and 28-year-olds. You seem like you would be a good dad." Story 2-2, "Her strange white face hid the secrets of betrayal. Her strange white face. She acted noticeably weird when the other guy, let's call him X, was around and when I came there suddenly. This is how it happened. We were in relation for almost 2 years. I was in throat love with her and all my life plan was revolving around her. We had lots of plan to do and promises to keep. I never felt insecure in our relationship as everything was good between us. Though we used to fight but used to patch within a day or two. I had to go out of the town for around 2 months due to my exams, and that is when she grew her relation with X. He was her senior in college. Initially it was friendship, and she even introduced me with him, calling me her hubby. She started talking with him more and more, started praising his talents when we talked, his poetry skills and whatnot. I didn't notice much and considered them to be good friend. But eventually we started fighting on things which never mattered in our relationship. After some months, one day suddenly she called me from college, came to meet me and said our relation is over. I thought it's just another fight and we will patch up again in some days. But alas, more fights followed, and I kept asking, are you in love with X or someone else? She strictly said no. Kept convincing me that she still loved me, but we can't be together anymore. I believed her but kept trying to patch up. Just after some day when all of it started, we went to book fair and I saw X there with one of his friend waiting for us just after entering into fair. I understood she must have asked him to come to meet. We shook jobs and X introduced me to his accompanying friend. His friend started talking with me in his fake American accent on some engaging topic. In the meantime she entered into one book stall, but I just kept talking with this guy and he was kind of engaging me. I didn't understood at first why did he was doing that, but later I did. After some time X got a call and went to other side of the stall. I was getting real bored in the things we were talking, so I told him I am going inside. He kind of tried holding me back in the discussion. I said, let's continue after some time, ignored him, entered into store and started looking for her. I saw her in one corner near to X. After looking at me her face turned white, like she has saw a ghost. I was confused about how this guy X is here when he went to some other side. Felt like I am being cheated with plan. Came out, started thinking, felt like crying then and there as I understood every lie of hers in some minutes. Started realizing more facts of recent past and felt like losing everything in the world. Couldn't leave the place. Still waited for her and walked back with her only, wanted to talk, reason with her, but she kept ignoring all the way back to home. I came back to my room in late evening, couldn't eat or sleep and cried throughout that night. One of the worst night of life, but even after 10 years I can remember almost everything what happened that evening and night. Many things happened after that day, maybe we'll write some other day. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, I don't understand why the people are like that. I really went through something similar with my ex, but the difference is that, he was my boyfriend, and she was my friend, a close friend. They were hiding things from me. I understand the pain that you could have gone through. When I found out, it's like a puzzle in my mind be armed quickly, and suddenly everything makes sense. Today I feel happy, grateful to God, and relieved that I did finish with that person, but in that moment I was in great pain, not because of him, because she was my friend. And she knew how much I was feeling for my then boyfriend. In your case she was so mean, she had the opportunity to tell you she was in love with X and she didn't tell you, because she wouldn't like to look herself like a cheater. She even took both of you to the same place as if you guys were really friends. What happened next? I wish you did not come back with her, you saved yourself from a very selfish person. Redditor 2, so many things happened after that in later years. She broke with that guy later and we tried patching up but eventually broke up finally. Now she is married to one a very good friend of mine of around that time. Later I came to know that she was again cheating with him when we were trying to patch up. Redditor 3, ugh. I am sorry for your pain. Almost every person has had to endure it, and when you read about another person going through it you can feel every pain they felt as if it were your own, because you remember it all over again. Be strong. You will meet someone better. I really believe it, because this will make you a better person. You will never do this to someone else, because you know how it feels. Take care, my friend.
Thank you for watching. Comment what do you think about this situation. Don't forget to like and subscribe.